Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you today. And of course, let me pop in the comments and just hopefully a bunch of you will show up. We love hearing your comments and questions, so that's a given. And of course, as was just stated, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, where you can discover your truth. Today, we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 in New Orleans. And of course, as I mentioned, please join us in the chat. We love hearing from you. While we're waiting for my guests to arrive, they might be a little bit late, but that's fine. Stuff happens in the real world. I wanted to ask you guys if you had any events in your life that help you and helped you continue to like cross over and make a transitioning into your awakening. For me, I had several in my life that really impacted me. I've always been very like an empath. And I guess that worked to my advantage and my disadvantage in life. So like if I walk into a room of crowded people, sometimes it gets very overwhelming because I'm just feeling all their energies. But as time goes by, you learn to, I guess, protect yourself from that type of energy. Not all of it's negative, of course. Some of it is, but I've had some events in my world that have changed me, like dramatically changed me. And if you have any like that, of course, I would love to hear about them. It would be great if you also stopped into YouTube and subscribe to my channel, Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. That would mean a lot to me, and give us a thumbs up. That would mean a lot as well. But while we're waiting, I thought we could talk about some of those events that are quite surprising and unexpected. At least mine were. The very first one that I had, I was about 16, and it happened years ago, obviously, but it felt like it was just yesterday. I was reading Cosmic Consciousness by Burke or Buck. I can't remember if it was Burke or Buck, but the book had such an impact on my life, and I read it and reread it so many times. But I remember there was one distinct chapter in there that just caught me in this moment. And here we go. Michelle, I'm going to add you in. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much. Oh. I know we were supposed to have Jerry, but unexpected things happen, and I so appreciate you popping in.
Oh, it's a nice surprise.
Thank you. I was just talking about events that like transform your life, that happen, like unexpected events, and kind of like in the high strangeness area. So I was just talking about this book that I read by, I think his name was Buck or Burke. I can't remember. It was Cosmic Consciousness, the name of the book. And I was about 16, and I was reading a paragraph in there, and it was kind of like my beginnings into the world of discovering like your consciousness and who you are and why we're here, all that good stuff. And I was reading this paragraph, and I was sitting on my front porch, and it was such a real event that I could recall it with such vivid memory. And I never did drugs or anything like that, so it wasn't drug related. And I was reading this one paragraph in there, and all of a sudden I had what I call like this epiphany, this awakening. And I felt like I almost left my body, and it felt like it lasted a long time, but it was literally seconds maybe. And after it happened, I just had this awakening. Everything seemed different. It's kind of hard to describe, but I was it was almost like euphoric in a way. And
Mhm.
after it happened, I was like completely freaked out. I tried to reread that passage over and over again,
Mhm.
get that feeling back. And I
Mhm.
did that for decades. I kid you not, because it
Mhm.
was such a euphoric feeling.
Right.
And it really transformed me and my spiritual sense. And I was
Mhm.
wondering if you or any other folks out there have had those. I mean, I can name a few more, but
Yeah.
have you had moments? I'm sure you have. And if you
I
have, what were they?
you know what? It's such a cool topic because I think sometimes these little things happen and we don't recognize them for what they are at the
Mhm.
time. And I'll give you an example. When before my mother passed away, I was on the highway. I was driving north. I had about a 5-hour drive ahead of me, and there was a good. It turned out it was going to be the last time that I was going to see her. So my maiden name, is spelled a certain way, and it's not it's not a normal way of spelling it. So bear this in mind as I go on the story. This has actually happened to me twice, but this is the last time it happened. So I'm driving, and all of a sudden I come up to a transport. The traffic slows right down, making sure I was meant to see this, and it had my maiden name across the back, spelt exactly like it was, and I was just like, uh that's that's a
Wow.
that's a thing. So anyway, I'm like, "Okay, that's a thing." But the same sort of idea happened to me a few years before with something that was weighing on me, about someone that had been in my life at the time, because people come in and out of your life, and I just sat there, being a little bit perturbed about the whole thing, and then all of a sudden, the same thing happens. I come pulling up, and there's this transport, and at the back of that is a person's
Wow.
name in the
Oh,
exact spelling, and then I heard this voice basically just said, "Let it go. Person
oh,
needs to heal." And I was just like, "All right, I'll just let that go." And I did. So sometimes it's pretty I say like the term black and white. It's sometimes there's things that are in your face. Sometimes it's a license plate. Sometimes it's a song. Sometimes it's a billboard. Sometimes it's just a sign on the side of a vehicle or the side of the road. Sometimes you're just talking to somebody and all of a sudden they'll say something and it triggers something within you that you just like, uh, sometimes it's a visitation from a loved one, which we talked about, the last
right.
time I was on, and you have this visitation and they just look at you and they say, "I'm okay. I've never been happier." And it changes everything. For me, that moment changed. I stopped grieving
Oh,
in
wow.
that moment because I was like, this is my best friend. She's going, we're sitting there facing each other in the back of the couch and going, "We're okay." Right.
That's
So,
that's incredible. And you
yeah.
know that that happens for a reason.
Mhm.
It's like the universe is putting it right in your face.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
incredible.
It's freaky. It's really freaky. But
Yeah, yeah,
I'm really grateful for those
yeah.
things. But how about moments? People have asked me, have you ever had angelic experiences? Because I've always worked with darker things. And I'm just going, yeah, you know. And again, it changed because this is something of my belief system, I guess, at the time, because I've seen so many things in my life, right? So many things. I've had so many of these experiences you talk about. But one, every night before I would go to bed, I would put it out there and just say, if my children need me, make me aware. I would say it
Mhm.
every night before I went to bed. And one time, so it's like something shot me up in bed. I sat up, like literally out of a dead sleep, and I'm sitting there going, I was trying to wake up. I'm like, I'm sitting up, but I had felt a hand on my back. So
Oh.
I look, and then I saw my 3-year-old who's sleepwalking, walking towards the stairs, sleepwalking.
Oh,
That's how I realized a kid sleptwalked, and because he never left his room, like he was a sound sleeper. He was, 3, and we just started keeping the gate up after that. But it's like I focused and I looked, and then I got up and I went and I obviously pivoted him around, and same idea with one of my other children. and he was just, probably about a year old, because, they always stayed in the room with us when they were up until that point, just over a year. And it sounded like he was struggling a little bit. And something right in my ear went, "Pshaw," really loud. I was like, "Ooh, crap, what was that?" Right? And I listened on the baby monitor. I went in and I could see he was struggling. Like, they're breathable blankets because they're baby blankets, but he was still panicking.
Right.
So I removed Dad and obviously brought him in with me. And it was just like, oh my God. Like, so these are little things. And sometimes it's just that one thing that puts that light on and you realize that, oh my gosh, like that is crazy.
It is. And, a lot of us don't pay attention to those moments,
Mhm.
or we, we're in the moment, whether it's a good experience or not. And we tend to panic and oversee those types of moments. Like I had one, sorry, my dog's barking.
It's all right.
Yapper. I had one before my husband passed away.
Right.
It was about a month before, and I just had this feeling that he wasn't going to be with us for long. And it wasn't just a feeling; it was like I was being told to prepare.
Mhm.
And I called up his doctor because I felt compelled that I had to do something.
Mhm.
And I got the PA on the phone, and we were talking about his condition. And she said to me, "No, don't panic. He's fine." And I said, "No, you don't understand. My husband is going to die. You need to do something. It's going to
Yes.
happen." And the woman was like, flawed, but I just knew that his time on this planet was limited. And
Mhm.
like in that moment, I didn't realize that that was like a message I was being given,
Mhm.
just to kind of prepare, I think anyway, because it
Mhm.
was something that I had never felt before.
Right. Right. That's, you know what? I always say, follow your instincts because they most certainly will not let you down. I
Right.
think part of the problem is people don't trust in it or trust in themselves. Like I have used mediumship here and there. I've always been in the forefront. So for me, I'm the person everybody tells everything to. So I've
Right.
never used myself because I look at that as it's going to be contaminated information. I already know it. Even though, I'm able to go in and pick up other things and validate all kinds of things. I I'm just like, I don't count. But in order to do that too, like then you just try it, you're using it every day. And it's kind of like you start to second guess yourself. I've had
Yes.
people say, "Oh my God, that was bang on," because I don't do readings. I've never had an interest in
Oh,
in doing readings or anything like that because I like the research part of everything, So it's for me how I felt for myself. This isn't how it has to be for everybody. Some people balance the two very, very well, but when you're the person in the front, it's very hard, right? When you have
have,
the info already.
have you met folks where you kind of knew something was going to happen and you felt compelled to tell them? Have you told them, like,
Yeah.
how did you deal with that?
Mhm. Well, I can give you 2 examples on that. The first time I ever just blurted it out, I was about 18, not very seasoned and not very, shall we say, I didn't have a lot of etiquette. So, your best friend comes up to you and says, "I want to know if my boyfriend's cheating on me." "Well, you're my best friend, right? Or my homie, my homegirl. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you for sure. Yeah, of course he is, right?" And that was a big faux pas on my part because she just looked at me like and she didn't expect it. And I'm just like, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. I
Oh,
realized last minute because I just sort of looked at him and went, "Well, yes, he is." Right? Like, I got your back. You're my best friend. And that was the thing. Like, I we never kept things from each other. I mean, we were friends for like 30 years. You know what I mean? It was weird. But what came to pass was she tried to take her own life.
oh
And
no.
yeah, and so that was a really hard lesson for me to just say, you know what? I realized then this is not something I want the responsibility of because
Oh. Oh,
realistically, I could have been responsible for this. And I realize it's up to us how we handle things. You get readings, things change as soon as you walk out that door, make a different decision. You take a
right,
different path. Like it changes
right.
all the time, and I just realized I'm like, oh, that hit me very, very hard. And then the second time, many, many, many years later, somebody close to me, I can't tell you how many people have told me, "Well, this person is going to pass. This person is going to pass." And
Oh,
so then I'm sitting there going, if I don't say something, then I feel like I could have prevented it. Maybe this person could have changed their way of life, changed their path, changed their destiny. So again, I made the decision to say, okay, yes, this is what I was shown or I was told by other people. So it was very well validated was going to happen. And that individual just looked at me, was like shocked. But I'm just like, whatever you're doing in your life, you maybe need to really reevaluate. But it didn't come to pass, which basically, there's that belief that if you intervene, which is why we're not always supposed to, if you
right.
intervene, it can alter the path. But I mean, I couldn't in good conscience not say something. So it's a really fine line.
Yeah.
Um, that changed me on two different levels with two people in my life at that time that it could have gone anyway, but for two different perspectives coming in two different angles. So,
Do you think that influenced you to not want to do readings for people?
oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, I also know it wasn't really my thing. I mean, there are people who are fabulous at it. Some of my dearest friends are some of the most amazing mediums, that I've met and worked with, and I have worked with people from all over the world who are just phenomenal. And then I have people who would randomly message me because they would pick up things on me,
Sure.
and say, "Well, can I give you this message?" I'm like, "Sure, I'm an open book. Go ahead." And they would give me incredible information. A lot of it came from seeing, our home, because we had a haunted manor house, seeing like our home, and they would pick up on the spirits and pick up on all kinds of things. And I'd go, yeah, that's correct. I believe in validating people because if you're not validated, I think that hinders a lot of people to not want
Right.
to pursue their abilities and their gifts. So I would always make a point of saying, yes, that's correct. And even if I didn't see something right away, if it happened eventually, I will always message back and say, do you remember when? I just want you to know it came to pass. So you were correct. I really like to empower people. I think it's very important. But
Oh, yeah.
for me, I was just never, I've had people like crazy, I'll go to purchase something online, like a buy and sell sort of thing. And then meanwhile, I've had it at times where I've had a spirit with me just badgering me. So I would say, I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but this is kind of what's happening with me right now. And most of the time, people are very receptive to it because I feel bad in a way too, because you don't want to just ignore the poor person
Exactly.
who's there saying, please, please. And that's just for me buying an item. So, just like,
You
you
know,
know,
it's cool because there's so many people that are truly gifted and that can help us in those ways. And then
yeah.
you got the fraudulent type of folks that are out there just to earn a buck and get notoriety. So and they're good at, fooling folks and making them think. So it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to like who to believe and who not to believe.
hmm Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say do your research on all of it. Look
Right.
for references, look for reviews, things like that. It's very difficult because most people will put on their websites to protect themselves for entertainment purposes only. Like
Yes.
because there have been people, you're giving a reading to somebody. There have been people who have they don't know how to deal with certain things. Like I will be read like people who are very close to me, and who have read me for years and years and years. So I definitely trust what they say. right? And I think that's important. If you know somebody, if you're blessed enough to know somebody who has these incredible abilities, and you're not always meant to know things. Like I'll always say, they're reading, I'm throwing my energy at 'em, like, give it to me, just give me everything you got, right? Meanwhile, then the spirit will come through. Like my mom is really bad for that. Will come through and go, well, I'm not giving you anything past 6 months. Why the heck not? What's wrong? Because you're not meant to know.
Right.
And this has
Right.
happened more times than not with loved ones coming forward. My grandfather used to do it. And it's funny because when he originally died, my grandmother used to tell stories about your grandfather comes every night and he's got this woman with him who's like a guide. And my grandmother's mad at him for a very long time. So anyway, I think he was just trying to come in and make nice part of his healing journey. So anyway, he would tell her things, and then this woman would say, "Okay, that's enough." And my grandmother, who's French, would say "mots et vache," which means fricking cow, or not fricking, but you can figure that
Yeah.
out. And but she would stop him. So I remember one time, many years later, having a reading from another friend of mine who used, a device, and he communicated. You could hear everything come through. It was my grandfather's voice for sure, and he was still trying to tell me things. And you would hear a woman come up behind him saying, "That's enough." And he would
Oh,
tell me a bit more. She'd say, "I said that's enough." He'd push it until she'd say, "Okay, we're ending this." And then all of a sudden, he would just stop talking because his time was up, I guess. He'd say, "Okay, thanks for calling." And
oh, that's crazy.
what?
Yeah.
But I think things that alter your path are
Yeah.
something that maybe we're just not everybody's meant to have that, I think. I have a
That's
friend who can't be read at all, like, at
oh, is
all.
it right?
They've had people say to him, "No, there's a blockage. Nobody's letting me see anything." He
Wow.
said, "God, I want something." He goes, "Well, somebody out there doesn't want you having something."
And they can do that? Wow.
Yeah, I guess they can because it's been a struggle his entire life.
Yeah. I wonder if he's blocking it unintentionally, like
Could be.
yeah,
You're starting to get into past trauma, things like
yeah,
that. It can affect you in many ways. Maybe there's something that you are not supposed to know that has to do with your past trauma.
exactly. Maybe it would be too much for him to bear even.
That's the thing. I think that it's people who are on healing journeys. Again, before my best friend passed away, a few years, many years now, she was going through. They were trying to get her into a regression to see what that trauma was, what was she blocking, and boy, they opened the floodgates, and she was not the same. And then they tried to go back further, and no matter what they did, they couldn't go back further. And
Oh,
but what they had uncovered, I think
yeah.
led to her decline.
Oh, no.
Yes. Yeah. So it's really hard, I think that we come here, some people have it intact. I mean, how many times you look at cases of reincarnation? You've got this little 4-year-old totally remembering his past
Oh,
life and takes you to where he's buried and who his wife was and the whole 9 yards. But
yep,
then there's some of us who come here knowing absolutely nothing, kind of going like, what is going on? Like, why are we not able to remember anything? Like, does it hinder the lesson really if we know in advance? Well, maybe, because clearly, how are we going to learn from it if we are already aware of what we did wrong? I think the idea is to learn it again.
right, exactly. And it's so interesting. I've been following for a while this gentleman. His name is Jerry Marzinski. He's
Hmm.
a very famous psychotherapist, therapist, and he worked in a psychiatric hospital for decades. And
Hmm.
boy, did he uncover. I mean, I'm going to have him on as a guest. I'm thrilled. I'm
Hmm.
thrilled. I'm so excited. I can't wait to talk to him.
Hmm.
Uh, one thing he taught me and pointed out was that we both have angelic and demonic beings that are surrounding us at all given times. And I think he quoted someone, and I'm just putting my research together for this, so pardon me, but I think it's two. He said two demonic and two angelic, but he did have a number. But he said that all the negative thoughts that we hear, the bad stuff that we hear in our heads, is the demonic voice talking to us, and that they're all lies. So you get up, you have a bad day, and you hear, oh, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid. That's all demonic chatter. So you got to learn how to distinguish that negative self-talk and understand that that's not you saying that. It's these demonic forces. And that just made so much sense to me. And also worked with a woman who has a very long history of dealing with this stuff. And she created a program called That's a Lie. And every time she hears that voice, she'll just say those three words, that's a lie. Well, that's a lie. And she like got rid of the demons by doing that. So when you meet people, and especially people that have abilities, sometimes you hear that inner voice telling you, well, you get the heads up. You know what I'm saying? Like, something is true or a lie. So it's really important to listen and pay attention to those voices.
I agree. I've spent 2 decades in the field working specifically with people who have had malevolent type experiences or attachments from many entities, not so much just the demonic. There are pretty awful human spirits out there. There's some extraterrestrial beings out there. I think it's learning to recognize which is which. You can get back it really deep down the rabbit hole with, demonics and the Nephilim, and you can get into like archons, which comes from the original, the Gnostics, archons who are believed to just sit up there and control all of this, feeding this negativity into the consciousness and so on, because that's what they in turn feed from. And it's funny that you mentioned this specifically, because I do have a friend who, I know so many people, and I'm so blessed to have acquaintances and people all over the world who confide and say, talk about this. If you want to talk about this, I'll come on, right? So, but you have somebody who essentially, hi Michelle, you have somebody who essentially, has had this past trauma. And it's almost like they know which buttons to push, right? So putting flashbacks of that trauma into your memory, and you're sitting there going, so now you're upset again, or now you got that sinking feeling again, and that's the idea. In fact, it works so well that there are, shall we say, certain programs out there, without fear of getting, as flagged. There's certain programs out there that are specifically done to people with, contactees, let's say, or ex, military, things like that. And that's the type of thing that they get into, right? So it's just a matter of triggering that you're conditioned to. If you hear a certain song, for example, you're triggered, that song will trigger certain memories. I think we do that to ourselves as well, which is why it is so important to work on any past trauma, because it can make you physically sick, right? Because the manifestation, it's a lot of it's about the manifestation. So you can get physically sick. You can get, emotionally, mentally, you can get so messed up over a lot of this. So there are things out there that know exactly what may trigger you, and that's what they do. The idea is to keep you down as long as possible. And raise your vibrations, right? Raise that frequency. And they cannot dwell in a space that is full of positive vibrations. They can't. They starve. If you just don't give it to them, just don't give it to them.
Yeah. It's not easy to do. Like, there are a lot of people that take their, baggage from previous relationships or whatever it is into, and it's a tough battle. It's not easy to, to fight those voices or those thoughts that you're hearing. my grief counselor taught me a trick that kind of worked really good for me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, when you're having that replay in your head,
Mm-hmm.
change the ending. He's like, you can change the ending yourself.
Right.
Like one time I fell, I was walking my dog and I tripped on a cracked stone,
Mm-hmm.
and I broke my hand. It was not good. And I
Mm-hmm.
kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And he said, change the ending. He said, right before you fall or
Mm-hmm.
when you trip, get up and see yourself okay. Say, hey, and I got to tell you, that really worked for me. I
Mm-hmm.
kid you not. So when
Because it's manifestation, right? You manifested a different ending.
and it really did work, and I still
Mm-hmm.
use it till
Mm-hmm.
if I get those kind of thoughts about bad events that took place or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I
Mm-hmm.
just put the ending around it, and I keep thinking about this new ending, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually it just goes away. It's the
Yes.
strangest thing, but it works.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the key. We really are in control of the things that go on in our lives with respects to how we handle it. You can't change you can't change what comes at you, but how you deal with it is something
Yeah.
that is completely in your control,
Oh, that's so true. Gosh.
right?
How does a psychic person like yourself, people that are intuitive and have gifts, how do they distinguish that demonic voice from the non-demonic voice?
Mhm.
Like, how do you distinguish, the angel talking
Mhm.
from the, well, I just noticed that Jerry
Yeah,
popped
yeah. We'll finish this last question and I'm gonna swap
hop
out.
him. All right,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Distinguish that from happening. Like, how do
Well,
you know? Maybe a demon is telling you something that you're thinking is coming from an angelic.
Well, there's a lot of things that mimic. I think you just have to have faith in yourself and have faith in what you're picking up on. Because believe me, there's a completely different feeling between one energy and the other. And that's well, everything is energy. Everything
Yes,
is frequency and vibration, everything. So we are frequency and vibration. We are pure energy. So you're going to know if something's not jiving with your energy. That's why people get that feeling in the pit of their stomach. They're just like, oh, I'm not jiving with how this is feeling.
right.
Trust it and
Yeah.
go with it.
So
And with that,
that's what you've always used.
always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always, and then you just work it that way. But you really are in control. Raise the vibration, raise the frequency. You're feeling scared, put on a funny movie. Put on some music, do some dancing, do some earthing. Just go out and make different connections that are going to change all of that frequency. It's always worked for me. It's what I have always done for other people and educating them. There is no waving of the magic wand. It's really a matter of your mindset and train yourself to think a certain way. The glass is not half empty, the glass is half full. just
Right.
just reframe it all. And with
Gosh,
that
that's
being
good advice. Yes. Thank you,
so,
Michelle. Thank
thank
you
you very
so
much.
much. I would love
Pleasure.
to introduce you to Jerry for a second,
Ab-
if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Hi,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Hello, ladies. I am so sorry for being fashionably late. I didn't realize there was a time differential there.
Oh,
Oh, I put EST everywhere, but
that's it. That's all right.
you're so
Have
busy,
a great
Michelle.
show.
And I love you dearly, and I so appreciate. I
No
will be in
problem.
touch soon.
All right, darling. Bye-bye,
Thank
guys. Have a good
A
show.
pleasure to meet you, Michelle.
And you as well, Jerry.
Hello, Miss
Oh, there
Carol.
we go. Hi. Nice to meet you, Jerry.
A
I
pleasure,
figured
ma'am.
it was a time thing. I kind of thought maybe. What time zone are you in?
Central.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, Carol. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, of course. Thank you. So I have a bunch of questions to ask you, and I just want to refresh. The original topic is developing multidimensional awareness, how the Mandela effect alters our dimensions. And we're going to get started asking you questions, Jerry. But of course, tell the folks a little bit about your background, what you're currently working on, how you got started, all that good stuff. So please let us know all about your past and present.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carol. So I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the DarkWolf. I've been studying the paranormal since about age 12. I got into it by a book in the library, funny enough. Found a book one day and it had all the different like paranormal topics and whatnot, and I was more than fascinated. So I started studying that and, into the UFOs for many, many years, ghosts, cryptids, whatever the case may be. And then in 2015, I found the Mandela Effect through a YouTube video. The end of a science video, as a matter of fact, somebody had mentioned the Berenstein Bears. And I went, no, that's always been Berenstein. There's no way. So this fascinated me as a paranormal researcher for all of my life at this point. I was about 30-something, 35 at that point, probably. It was a brand new paranormal concept, and it just fascinated me. So I wanted to dig deeper into this and basically become an expert in the Mandela Effect is what I've done. So in 2019, I pulled together Cynthia Sue Larson, Christopher Anatra, Shane Robinson, and myself, and we put on the first International Mandela Effect Conference in Sun Valley, Idaho. After that, we become a 501c3 organization and have been putting on conferences around the world ever since. We've been in America so far, but been putting on conferences about the Mandela Effect around the world, pulling together authors, speakers, enthusiasts, just like the UFO guys used to do. We just had our 4th in-person conference, our 5th annual altogether. That was here in Nashville, Tennessee. We had an amazing group of speakers this time. That will be coming out on YouTube probably in the next month or so. So you guys be looking for that. And now we're just kind of coming together to try to figure out where we're going to put the next one at, who all we're going to have speak at. We do this for and of the community. The community decides where we have it, who talks, everything about the conference. This is all built on the Mandela Effect community. So that's what I mainly have been working on.
Cool. Yeah, I've interviewed Cynthia. She is phenomenal. What an amazing spirit she is. I adore her. She's great. I want to have.
She glows.
Oh, she does. We actually scheduled the live we're going to be doing here because I know she was busy with the conference too. But I did a pre-recording with her on Ethereal Encounters Unveiled on YouTube. So folks, if you haven't heard or seen any videos with Cynthia Sue Larson, you need to check her out. She's just a one-of-a-kind human being.
Oh, the lady's a living legend. Her research is 20 or 30 years ahead of what we're doing now. She's been researching this for longer than I have, surprisingly enough. So yeah, amazing woman. And like I said, she literally glows when you see her.
She does. She really does. You can find her on YouTube too, folks. So definitely check her out. But I wanted to, so now that we got some of your background as to how you got involved and started, let some folks know, because I'm sure there's many of them that don't know what the Mandela Effect is. So maybe you could just give us a 30,000 foot view of basically what it is. And because there are some people that don't know, but that population is diminishing because there's a lot of people that do know about the Mandela Effect.
I have a feeling you're trying to get me in trouble, Miss Carol. That's a dangerous road to tread right there.
I know.
So I won't use the words false memory in my explanation. That's for sure, because that will get me in trouble with the rest of the community. But no, seriously, the Mandela Effect is how do I word this? A phenomenon where large groups of people share a memory that reality says does not match their memory. So, for instance, the Berenstein Bears, EIN, as most of us remember the children's book, has always been Berenstain, AIN. Jiffy Peanut Butter has always been Jif. Jiffy's never existed. Shazam, the movie with Sinbad, has never existed, period. Stouffer Stovetop Stuffing has never existed. Things like this. And when I say never existed, I don't mean it was called, Stouffer's Stuffing or something without stovetop. I mean, Stouffer's never made it. Like never, ever, period. You can't find evidence thereof.
Yeah.
And there's a mountain of examples like this where there are large groups of us who I'm sure most of us listening remember the ones I just threw out there. And I'm sure some of you are going, no, he's wrong, and looking it up on your phone right now.
Well, I'm sharing this screen right now with either the Berenstein Bears or the Berenstein Bears. Is it
Stein or Stain? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's so confusing. But as you can see, you folks can Google these things that Jerry's talking about, and you'll be able to learn about exactly, what's causing this Mandela effect. It's crazy stuff. So you were talking about the Stouffer's thing. That's so like crazy. I don't understand. So what's exactly happening? You gave us a few examples. There's so much more to it than that. I mean, you can have a 4-hour conversation about some of the differences, because I've kind of looked into a lot of them in the past just by having conversations with folks like you. Why do you think this is happening to us? What's the overall overarching reason, Jerry? What in the world's happening?
You're asking the $1 million questions tonight, Miss Carol. Before I do answer that, I do want to give you a little story about the conference and the stovetop stuffing.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, who is more of very much a skeptic, I pulled him kicking and dragging to the paranormal, and he's slowly getting there. Well, he went to the conference. He was our security guard. He's listening to the conference and whatnot. And one of the guys mentions stovetop stuffing, and he's got the box of stovetop stuffing and how it never existed. And my brother, I can see him in the back of the room with a phone, and he's looking at the stage, and he's looking at his phone, and he's looking at me, and he's typing something on his phone. He's got his no way look on him. He was looking up stovetop stuffing. We both know what he was finding, so I didn't really, ask him much further than that. But he was, you could tell he was very intrigued by not being able to find stovetop stuffing or any relation thereof. So I thought that was pretty funny for a person that really has been dragged kicking and screaming to this, for them to see stuff like that.
Yeah, we all know it's stovetop. Like, we all know it.
So to your next question, Miss Carol, what is causing the Mandela effect? So I asked the same question in 2015, the day that I found it. What's causing this? This is fascinating. Why would this be happening? I am no closer today to an answer to that question, Carol, than I was in 2015. As a matter of fact, I think I'm a little more confused, but I do have a list of ideas of what could be causing it.
Oh, we'd love to hear them.
Okay, so number one, of course, we'll go with the elephant in the room, or in this case, the collider in the room, the Large Hadron Collider, CERN. A lot of people point to this and say, yeah, absolutely, this is what's causing it. I have an issue with that one, because the Mandela effect still occurs when that Large Hadron Collider is turned off for 3 and 4 years at a time. So I kind of rule that one out, though I do see where that's possible. With the right physics, one could theoretically use a particle collider to open a portal and maintain its stability therein. And yes, the maths do math out on that for those listening. I was actually working on some stuff last night with GPT about something like this. Something I can't talk about right now because it may be my next presentation. But there is evidence to suggest that CERN could theoretically open portals, but there's not evidence to suggest that that is the case that's going on. So that's the first theory, CERN.
I have to interject. I'm glad you started with the Large Hadron Collider. For folks that don't know, there's CERN built this Large Hadron Collider. Where is it on the border of Switzerland? Is it? I think Switzerland
and France.
And France, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what they achieve is they're smashing particles together to unearth the God particle. And I guess that dates back to like uncovering the Big Bang and trying to reproduce maybe Big Bang effects, stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff, if you go look it up and research it, which I hope folks do, a lot of their ceremonies are very demonic in nature. They're very strange. They just put it out there, but that has nothing to do with the Mandela effect. Just the whole vibe, though, it gives me reason to think that you might have hit the nail on the head with them, because yeah, maybe the collider is off, but what they've done in the past dimensionally has altered. But then again, the Mandela effect was around since what, the 30s or 40s, Jerry? Help me out here. What's the year? I know Cynthia told me. It's
so that's funny, because I would say at least the 30s or 40s. We know Philip K. Dick reported on it. We know he was one of the first Mandela effect reports we've ever gotten. So at least as early as Philip K. Dick. Now, there's something I have introduced called time smear. And we've seen the Mandela effect take things and move them way back in history. So, for example, something shows up today. There's one of them. It's rare. Nobody's ever seen it in the world. It's one of a kind. It's so unique. 3 months later, there will be, oh, yeah, there was a whole pack of them we found. And 6 months later, oh, we found them back in the 1980s. And then a couple months later, well, actually, we've known about them since like the 1800s, you know. So it'll slowly work its way back through time. So I'm calling this time smear. It's smearing itself across time to the point that I couldn't tell you, like a time traveler. If a time traveler built a machine today and took off and went to the 1920s, 2000s, back to 1860, linearly, it would look like he started in 1860, right? We would say that was the first one, even if it started in the 2000s. It's smeared across the timeline to the point that we couldn't determine the right point of starting. I think Mandela effect is becoming like that, so spread across the timeline that there's no definitive point of beginning or ending, per se. At least that's been my experience.
Is that number two, or is there you said you had a few reasons?
I think that would be a principle based on all of them, really. But time smear would be trying to determine how it started. That would be a little trickier. Number two, I would go with multi-dimension slipping. So this is the most popular in the Mandela effect community. This is the one that everybody jumps to, the one that makes us look kind of silly, to be honest with you. Because people start out with this theory. They lead with this. And this is the idea that there are multiple dimensions, there are parallel worlds, all of them maybe slightly different than this one, maybe majorly different than this one. But somehow our consciousness slips between dimensions into different versions of this vessel body here. That's the theory of multi-dimension jumping. Or quantum jumping, as Cynthia puts it.
I like that. I like that theory. Makes sense to me. And I'll tell you why, because I think especially since 2020, when we got hit with the pandemic, it almost felt like we were slipping into a different dimension, just globally. Like, and on a personal level, like I have felt like I've had that experience happen to me where I'm just not in the right dimension. Is that what you're kind of talking about? Where you just slip back and forth into these different dimensions?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, that's what Philip K. Dick actually was talking about when he was talking in Metz, France. And speaking of, the only way you would know the difference is if one little variable was changed. He was speaking on a simulation theory basis, but like you walk into your room, your light switch has always been on the right, and now it's all of a sudden on the left, right? Or something like that. You know it's been the other way. Well, maybe I remembered wrong or something like that. Things of that nature could determine that you're in a slightly different reality than you were before. And think about different realities. It could be as simple as a single blade of grass in someone's yard is different. That'd be a different reality, technically.
I hear you on that. So I check mark on that one. I like that. What's number 3?
Number 3 would be the Bible.
Hmm.
So the Bible has a lot of Mandela effects within it. And that is something that really bothers Christians, as I would imagine it would. So a lot of people think that the Mandela effect could be the devil, or the end times, signs of the end times, signs and wonders out of the book of Revelation. And with the Bible itself changing, I mean, that would make sense. The enemy would have to have domain over that in order for it to change, because, I mean, I doubt God would be changing his own word. He could. He's got the power.
Could you give us some example of biblical Mandela effects?
I would love to. So the most famous example that there is the Isaiah 11:6 Mandela effect. So I'm sure a lot of you don't recognize the verse by number, but you might recognize the lion shall lie down with the lamb.
Yeah,
I'm sure we've all heard that, right?
Absolutely.
Well, it turns out that has never been the actual line. The line is the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. And oh yeah. And for those that are wondering, well, it's just a translation thing, it's the NIV opposed to KJV. It's just a translations difference. No, that is very much not the case, actually, because it doesn't matter which translation you find, they are all now wolf and the lamb. There used to be some that wasn't. They're all wolf and lamb now.
I'm sure you've researched that. What are they saying is accounting for that? Are they telling us that it's just our imagination? Like, I know I've heard that the lion lies down with. Oh my gosh, I've heard that.
So yes, ma'am, they're trying to convince us that we're all just, a little bit really crazy.
Yeah.
They were crazy. Yeah. If it's not in the Bible now, it never was. God's word don't change. You're all out of your mind. You're blasphemous. There are some preachers that will tell us we're doing the work of Satan himself.
Jeez, okay. So that's a great example of a biblical Mandela effect. I'm sure there are a lot more, right?
There are words in there that don't belong, like pavement, stuff. Stuff is in there quite a bit, because that's really a biblical stuff, and that stuff.
No
there, oh yes, ma'am, number of times.
I don't think I've tripped over that word yet.
There's a lot of modern day words in there that don't belong.
Wow, that's crazy.
That there's emojis in there. Emojis. Think about that one for a second.
Where are emojis? Like, give us an example of an emoji.
I'm not sure the verse. I'm really not sure exactly where it is, but I know there's at least one emoji in the Bible. See if I can find it on Google.
Is it like a smiley
I believe it is. I believe it's either a smiley or a winky face.
Oh my!
And I can't find it now.
All right, we'll check into it for sure. But okay, so that's number 3. Do you have a number 4?
So actually, I'm trying to pull up the theory series here. I had a whole list of them, and it's been so long since I went through the theory series. So let's see. We've done CERN. We've done the multi-dimensions. We've done the Bible. what is the next theory we have here? Like I said, sorry, I'm trying to go back to my old series and pull them up. We did the devil did it. Here we go. I do apologize. I should have been more prepared for this.
That's okay. I'm shooting a lot of questions at you, so that's fine.
Here we go, the theory series. So we did sliders, time travel.
Right.
Time travel is another very popular one people come up with in the very beginning, right? This is something you look at the initial evidence, you say, oh, somebody's traveling through time to do this. Like they're changing the Berenstein, or they're changing some little small thing to tell us. So I thought this was the most beautiful. What's that?
Is that like supposed to be one time traveler or a bunch of them? Like what? How does that work?
There's one keep going back and forth. Like I thought this was a beautiful idea for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And the reason is the rules of time travel. We all know the rules of time travel. If I go back and I kill baby Hitler, right? So let's use the classic example. Nobody's going to know the name Hitler. They're going to know another name. The Holocaust would probably still occur, but it just wouldn't occur under the name Hitler. Nobody would know the name but me, who went back and changed reality before reality became what we know it to be. So the only one who would notice a Mandela effect in this scenario would be the time traveling observer, not everyone else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, especially the non-interference law, of non-interference. So, okay, so I could see where you fell in love with that for 10 minutes. And any other theories that you have, or?
Yes, ma'am. There's one of them we shouldn't have missed. Number 2, I should have put it there. D-wave computers or quantum computing. That is a gargantuan cat. Was that a cat?
A dog, my little poodle.
Oh, looked like a kitty for a second. I thought that's a huge cat.
No, it's my little poodle, Oliver.
Oh, he's gorgeous.
So
the D-wave quantum computers, this and CERN, in my opinion, do go hand in hand back to the first theory. And that is because CERN owns a D-wave quantum computer. But more importantly, the quantum computer, if you ever listen to a guy named Jordy Rose explain how these things work, he either said it wrong or let the cat out of the bag. One of two things happen. Because he said these work by reaching into other dimensions and doing calculations in other dimensions and bringing back the data to this dimension. This is how he explained it on stage. Okay. So just so you know, I'm not putting words in a man's mouth. So this is how he explained the use of the D-wave quantum computers. So if the idea is quantum computers are literally reaching into other dimensions to do their work, they could be bringing up energy back from those dimensions, or just the fact that a doorway exists between them to do such work could be the cause of the Mandela effect. And again, when you combine this with the idea that CERN owns a quantum D-wave computer,
right.
So you've got two pieces. One thing that says our job is to open a doorway to another world. CERN has said this. And D-Wave, who said our computer works by opening a doorway to another world. Yeah, they're working hand in hand, folks. So those two together, I would caveat with the possibility of the reason behind it. Like it's a larger possibility than just CERN or just D-Wave.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. So these quantum computers are doing this unintentionally, just by their being, in other words, just by their nature. These are unintentional.
Just by the very nature of how they work. Yes, ma'am. According to the guy that was telling us how they work. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, call me Carolann. Man makes me feel old.
Not a problem. I'm a Southern man, so I was raised either a man or a sir. So.
No, thank you. So I love number 2 and 4 together. No, 1 and 4.
1 and 4.
1 and 4 would be Yeah, that kind of makes the most sense to me in terms of how this could be happening. We know it's not our imagination. There's too many documented cases. Even Cynthia talked about events in her life that were changed due to the Mandela effect. So it's not only things, or words, it's events that are happening to people. Am I right, Jerry?
That is correct, ma'am. So there are people who remember things that happened in different years, for instance, Cynthia being one of those people. The harmonic convergence. This was where a large group of people got together in the 1980s for a meditation that was supposed to change the world. Now, I say in the 1980s because it's in dispute in this community what year that occurred. There are people who remember it happening in 84, 86, and 87. I believe 87 is where it's documented at this point in history. Don't
Okay.
quote me on that. I haven't looked in the last week.
Now, don't they do those every year now? Or I know we just had one not long ago. The global
I
meditation thing.
I don't know. I like you said, I know they had one a year or two ago, but I'm not sure if they do it like every year or how that, I haven't been notified if they do.
Yeah. I know I've seen it out there somewhere that they had that. So, all right, we kind of went over some of the possibilities that would cause this. Do you think that the Mandela effect is altering dimensions, or do you think that it's happening because of altered dimensions, or is that one and the same?
That's a really good question, actually. Are we altering, or is the dimension being altered for us? Or that's a great question that I wish I had a better answer to be honest with you. I have thought about this at length, and the dimension jumping theory is one that bothers me a lot. And the reason is I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm opposed to the deeper level concepts. So I talked about this in my talk in 2023. Yeah, in Connecticut. At the conference, I actually gave a talk because normally I'm the MC of the conference. I don't normally give the talk. I'm the one, introducing everyone and holding it all together. But in my talk, I drilled down into this concept of the multiverse and dimensional jumping. And here's some things that bother me about that. So the first thing that bothers me is if we're moving across dimensions, what's moving, the physical body or the consciousness? So to answer this question, we've seen examples where bodies, scars have moved, tattoos have moved, things physically
Wow.
on the body have been altered or in different spots.
Wow, that's crazy.
Right. I haven't personally seen this myself on my body, but I have heard many, many stories from people who swear their tattoo was in a different spot or the scar was over here, not on that side of the body, or whatever the case may be. So that would suggest that the consciousness is moving, not the body. Well, if the consciousness is moving, where's it moving to? It's moving to another vessel, clearly. Okay, so what was here in the vessel before this consciousness? Where did that go? Is it still here? Is it me? Is it one of many, many versions of me? Would I notice a difference? Questions like these bother me because I don't have an answer to them.
Yeah.
At least not definitively.
Yeah.
I was reading some stuff the other day that actually could answer this. The idea that some of these dimensions are, how we put this, holding and waiting. So everything happened there as if it does here through an NPC version of our current selves is the theory. And when we jump into that, everything is generally as it should be with maybe some small variant here or there, of course, So the idea of NPCs across multi-timelines that our consciousness swaps into, that's a concept. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but that's an interesting one that I've been working with lately.
And for folks that don't know, the NPCs are non-player characters that you see in video games. And they're kind of like the salesperson in the store. So like they're there, they're not really performing any other role except for just being there. They're like empty vessels of a character. So like you're the character in the game and this person in the store is just like there. So NPCs are like these filler characters, right? So what are you
Correct.
saying? In the other dimension, there are filler people like us, or
That's the theory. That's the idea, is that in other dimensions there are just more versions of this face here, this whole body here, that are doing the same thing I'm doing, having this conversation with you still, but may say a word different here or a thought different there, or get tied up into thoughts more so than I have already tonight, or maybe umming every sentence. Yeah, so and
right.
whatever the case may be, there may be a small variant therein. So if my consciousness were to jump to that particular reality in this theory, then I would either have the memories of going the whole time, as well as not doing it, and or reality state that this happened, even though the interview I gave now didn't have all those, right? So that could be small variants that would occur between realities.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm just going to take a quick midway break. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled with our guest, Jerry DarkWolf Hicks. We are live on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Thank you again for listening. Your support means everything. Okay, Jerry, so I don't know, this whole dimensional thing makes me crazy too. For the folks that never heard of the Mandela Effect before, say this is the first time they're hearing it, they never heard of it before, and they go, all right, well, how does this affect my life? Like, what, this is just another one of those woo-woo kind of strange highness things. It's not going to affect my life. How do you think that that's not a true premise, that maybe it is affecting everybody's life? What's your take on that?
There's no way the Mandela effect is not affecting every single person out there. And it may not be a large effect. It may not be anything like show-stopping or brain-breaking or send somebody to a mental ward, though we did have that in the beginning. Excuse me. A lot of people see the Mandela effect without noticing it. Like, a lot of people don't realize the monocle is not on the Monopoly Man or Jiffy peanut butter. A lot of people go into a store and see Jiffy peanut butter as Jif is, oh, they changed the branding. That's what I did.
Right. Now I know that Monopoly guy had a monocle. I used to play Monopoly all the time as a kid. Like, that made me crazy when I first heard that.
Oh yeah, and then we're just getting him confused with Mr. Peanut. No, Mr. Monopoly and Mr. Peanut are two different dudes. I didn't play Monopoly with Mr. Peanut. Okay,
right.
I played Monopoly with the Monopoly Man.
Right.
And then you have places like Europe who didn't get introduced to Mr. Peanut, but they remember the Monopoly Man having a monocle.
There you go. So the Mandela effect is affecting everybody on the globe, even in small ways that people may not realize it. So why is it a good idea for folks to know about it? Is it just to increase awareness so that they can like try to identify these moments in their lives? Like, what's the end game?
Now that is a better question than what's going on, I guess you'd say. So that question there, I find fascinating. It could be, a lot of people think, a wake-up call to the idea that there's something more than your 9 to 5, the world that you reside in, your perfect little nothing's odd world. It could be a wake-up call to say, hey, there's more going on. Open your eyes, look around. There's also the idea that the more people awaken on this planet, as we've seen in the last 2 decades, easy. Yourself, I'm sure, a fellow researcher, have been screaming for most of your life probably, why can't these people see this? What is wrong with these people? Wake up!
Every day.
But I think you can also agree with me in saying that there are more people awake now than ever in our
Yeah,
lifetime.
absolutely.
By the droves, not just one or two, by the dozens and hundreds and thousands. And I think this is having an impact. The idea that consciousness is all connected, and the fact that the more of us wake up, the more energy goes into that, the more energy is going to continue to flow into the ideas of paranormal, of Mandela effect, and they're going to continue to grow. The more consciousness awareness go upon it, the more we're going to see it. And I think that's it could be a very much a side effect. And I think I'm coming up with my own theory right now as we talk off the top. It could be a side effect of the awakening of people, just the mass consciousness coming together, the extra consciousness that wasn't there in the pool to begin with, if you will, to use an analogy, could be having an effect on more and more people, allowing them to be more open-minded, or at least allowing them to see, hey, that's not right. Hey, there's a crack in my reality here. Like Truman. The Truman Show is a great example of this, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
When the light falls. So Truman's walking around just as happy-go-lucky as ever, as asleep as one could get.
Yep.
And then the light falls. And he starts to realize something's off. And his consciousness starts to change. And you see it throughout the movie as Truman starts to realize more and more things around him that were there all the time, but he's just noticing them. And we've got Mandela effects like this. Jiff's been there a decade now. Monopoly Man's been missing his monocle close to a decade now. All these different things have happened at least a decade ago. I've tracked a lot of these changes. Now you have people that are looking around going, oh crap, what was that? The light fell. Oh God, where's Jiffy? Oh God, where's the Berenstein Bears? Oh, all these different things that people are starting to see. And I think it's becoming a snowball effect that the more people wake up, the more they see these things, the more they wake up, which is waking more people up, so on and so forth. And kind of a feedback loop, if you will.
Oh my gosh, Sherry, I can't tell you how much I agree. Now, I remember as a kid, the Fruit of the Loom always had a cornucopia with fruit inside of it. So that was one of the Mandela effects. And then they came out, I think not long ago, and said, oh, we never had a cornucopia. And then people started digging into their old stuff and took pictures of it. So it's like so blatant. It's such a blatant lie. It's crazy. But I'm glad you brought up that last topic about our consciousness, because my next question to you is exactly what you were talking about, that many of us have experienced a massive shift in our consciousness, especially during the past several years. Let's talk about 3D, 4D, 5D consciousness. Let's just hear your take on that. And do you think the Mandela effect has a role in there? I know you just kind of said it did a little bit, but just give us your take on that.
Does the Mandela effect have a role in this? So there's a couple ways we can actually look at this. One being the fact that as we go into the higher dimensions, the 4D, the 5D, so on and so forth, like Dolores Cannon talked about, as a matter of fact, that we be able to see these things more often. So that could be one example, or one way of a kind of a roadmap, if you will. Seeing the Mandela effect could be kind of the first signpost on the way to 4D or 5D, or I'm not going to lie, 4D, 5D is not exactly my wheelhouse. So for those out there, like if I say something a little incorrect in this portion, bear with me, not my spot. But the 4D, 5D thing, it could be, like I said, the Mandela effect being a signpost on the way. Hey, if you're able to see this, if you're tall enough for this ride, that could be one example. It could be a way to just wake people up and just let them know, hey, you're a multidimensional being, or hey, you're more than just this small realm around you. I really don't have a good answer for that, Carol. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I'm not the 4D, 5D guy.
It's a little complicated because I have researched that a little bit, and some people have a very basic explanation for this transmutation from 3D to 4D to 5D. Some people just say, well, 3D is the life that everybody lives. You get up, you go to work, you pay your bills. You're not really too aware, like spiritually. You don't really ask those questions. 3D is like the next level where you start saying, why am I here? What's my purpose? And you start investigating more, and you start asking more questions about the nature of the universe and so on. Maybe you start meditating and taking a deep dive into your inner core, that kind of thing. Some people use ayahuasca at that point, and those are like the transportation, I guess, into the fifth dimension, where you're really at like that higher level consciousness. You're vibrating like on a completely different level. So I'm thinking that with that simplistic explanation, that maybe because we've kind of morphed into this 4D, which I think a lot of people are on now, like you said, that the Mandela effect is becoming more and more apparent to us. People are feeling it more and spotting these differences more. So it's kind of like it's like a package deal. It's like you can't have one without the other kind of thing.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And again, you also have UFOs that come into the picture now, and you got ghost and spirit activity that comes into the picture now. So now you're getting into the realm of a lot of paranormal things when you start getting into the 4D, 5D. The idea of dimensional beings that live in the 5D, we call them aliens, right? There's that concept that they don't come from another planet; they come from another dimension. So there's a possibility of that. Are they the ones that are more enlightened? Are we headed there? Will we look like the Greys when we get there? If so, no thanks. I'll stay where I'm at.
Absolutely. It's so interesting because Michelle and I, the manager of the network that you just met briefly, we were talking about the connectedness of all of these paranormal high strangeness events, that everything is connected on this dimensional level. And I'm just wondering, like, take for instance, I don't know if you're into spiritual investigations, hauntings, things like that. But if you look at those types of events, take like a poltergeist, right? Mm-hmm. So you have a teenager going through a really rough time, and all of a sudden stuff starts moving in your house. They're capable of this kinetic energy, bouncing things around, moving things. Maybe, just maybe, because we are in this higher dimension of consciousness, do you think that we could be creating the Mandela effect ourselves? Because it's like, when you see a word and then or a number, and then you see that number everywhere for the next week, like maybe, like, what's your take on that? Are we creating the Mandela effect ourselves?
That's a great question. I love the example you use. Like your buddy gets a car and it's a yellow Jag, and now everywhere you see yellow Jags. Everybody and their brother suddenly has one. You ain't seen them up to that point. Right. Yeah. So are we consciously creating the Mandela effect? The jury's still out. I think the possibility is 100% yes. I think with a large enough group consciousness focused on any individual item, I think would create a Mandela effect without question. I don't have empirical evidence to back that up. That is my opinion. I would like to run tests like that. As a matter of fact, as the conference, we're talking about running a workshop like that one time, where we just focus intently on one specific thing we want to see a change in and monitor the effects to see if it occurs. The experiment has not been run yet, at least on our side. I'm sure it has millions of times. We just don't know.
Yeah.
But can consciousness? I would personally say absolutely. I think we are absolutely creating these Mandela effects consciously, and it could be so much as a group consensus, right? It could be consensus on the remembering of one way or the other that's changing it. If say, and I'm going to use a very simple example here, 51% of people remember Berenstein with the A, it's now an A. Until maybe 51% remember it with an E, and again, I'm sure it isn't that much, like 51. I'm sure it's not that close, but the concept is there. I would absolutely agree that the concept that consciousness could be behind the changes is absolutely there. And I would take it a step further and say consciousness is behind reality itself. That we are small buds of the full consciousness that runs reality. And of course, science does not like that theory. The ontological model, I do believe it's called. But yes, ma'am, I fully believe in the ontological model, and the consciousness is the basis of everything. So yes, consciousness in this case would be affecting the Mandela effect or creating Mandela effects.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense too. I guess you could posit that as a really good theory, right? That it's definitely a possibility. I love the idea of doing a scientific test at your conference to, like have a group think session and to put the intention out there of changing something and see if it unfolds, over the next. Do you think that the Mandela effect would exist if there were no internet?
Yes. I don't think it would be as strong as it is, but I think there would be little niche groups that would start to form, say in coffee shops or cafes, whispering about this weird thing that they're all experiencing. Just like the UFO guys did. The UFO guys didn't need an internet when they started coming together saying, we see a light in the sky that we can't explain. And over time, they were able to pull together and do what they did. So no, I don't think the internet, I think it sped up the process. But I think it would have still occurred just like the ghost guys, just like the UFO guys. I think eventually we'd have said, hey, guys, we see something we can't explain here. What's going on? I think it would take a lot longer, though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. How has all of this changed your life?
Oh, man, that's huge. So as a lifelong paranormal researcher, it was I was a kid at Christmas, an absolute kid in a candy store, a brand new paranormal phenomenon coming to light in my lifetime. Oh boy, what is this? So yeah, on that aspect, I was extremely excited about finding it. Now, how has it changed my life since then? In droves. I ended up meeting a person in a research chat room, and we become really, really good friends. I moved to Sun Valley, Idaho after meeting that person and stayed there for 4 years, where I ended up starting the conference at, as a matter of fact. So that began a heck of a journey. I got back to Tennessee, where I'm at now, and have been putting on yearly conferences. I actually work with the amazing team that I mentioned earlier, Cynthia, Chris, and Shane. They're an absolute honor and pleasure to work with. There's no ego there whatsoever. I've never worked with a team that everyone is fully about the community. It ain't about me. It ain't about what I've done for anything or any of the others, same way. Yeah. It's really changed everything about my life. It's changed how I live my day. I end up with email strings from the team all the time discussing Mandela effects or what to do for the next conference or things going on. It's really made my life a lot different. It's made me into a showman. I really wasn't a show type guy, a spotlight type guy before that. It's totally rearranged what I knew as reality. For sure. The Mandela effect has Mandela affected my life into something that it wasn't when I found it.
And how has it changed you on a spiritual level?
That's a really good question. Pardon me 1 second.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. They teach us to mute ourselves when we sneeze, right? In radio.
That's funny.
So, how has it changed me spiritually? It's really changed me a lot spiritually, because beforehand, I would have told you, the Bible can't change. Everything is as it is. God is God, and that's it. And now I look at it a little differently. I don't dismiss God. I'll never dismiss God. I like breathing. But with that said, it's really made me a much more spiritual person. It's made me open my eyes to ideas and concepts that before I would have scoffed at. Mm-hmm. Even as a paranormal researcher, there's a certain line you got to draw and say, nope, that's too far for me. I'm sure you're well aware of that.
Oh yeah.
Some of the cases we've looked into, I'm sure, has been no, this is bunk. That's just too far. That's too much, So it's really made me change my idea of what a spirit is, what consciousness is. I've always theorized consciousness and spirit is one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, like ghosts, for instance, ghosts show this excellently. A lot of times when a ghost or a haunting scenario, you can pinpoint who the haunting or who the ghost is based on things they do, haunting activity, whatever the case, things they're wearing, whatever the case may be. So that would suggest that the consciousness remains intact across the barrier. But then you get into Mandela effect and multi-dimension theories and stuff, and you start to question the whole idea of going straight to heaven when you die. I know out there those calling me a blasphemer. Hold on, follow me. I'm not completely crazy, I promise. So the idea of the Mandela effect suggests that there's multi-dimensions. There's also the idea that quantum... It's called quantum suicide, but I don't like that word. It's another one. Basically, you jump to another dimension when you die. So in this dimension, I appear as a dead body on the ground that had a heart attack. But to me, to my consciousness, that doesn't exist. I've jumped to another dimension where I'm still walking around, maybe a little chest pain or, from what could have occurred there, but not dead on the ground. But to me, that never changed. To me, there's never been a moment where I died. But to the outside observer in the previous reality, that body no longer has the consciousness in it. So could it be that when we die, we literally jump dimensions? Well, that would mean there's no such thing as a heaven. No, that's not the case, because in the Bible, it tells us we live 120 years. Most of us don't live that full 120, at least not in this realm.
Right.
So if we reach that 120 point, say in another realm, is that the point where God says, all right, you're done, come on back home, quit jumping rooms, come back home, like rooms in a house, if you will?
Well, too, Jerry, if you talk about discovering the Mandela effect that changed your life, what about NDEs, near-death experiences? I mean, that kind of surfaced up too in the past, like maybe 20 years, where people are really like, you say NDE to people and most people know what it is. And 20 years ago, that's not the case, but now most people do know. So what's your take on the NDEs and the Mandela effect?
Now that's funny that you should question or bring up that particular point in question, because when I found the Mandela effect in 2015, I was alternately researching at the time the case of James Leidiger and the NDE of that case, which that's the one that was the World War II pilot that died in the plane and came back his name was James, also as a pilot, and then came back as a little boy and started having the memories of dying in the plane and being trapped. And
mind-blowing story.
So I was actually looking into that particular case at the time that I ran across the YouTube video. I was taking a break from research when I ran across the YouTube video that introduced me to the Mandela effect. So with that said, my first theory ever, I didn't mention this one earlier because it's not a well-known one, was the veil theory, I call it. And that's the idea that you've got these souls that, from documentation or research in the Leininger case, for instance, that was 50-year differential. And according to the doctor that was researching this case, you've got a lot more children who are remembering past lives from a lot shorter time period. So my theory was that there was a hole poked in the veil between worlds, and that hole was starting to slowly expand and more things were coming through, including energies that were causing the Mandela effect. That was my first theory, like 20 minutes after finding the Mandela effect, because I'm the why guy. Like, I always ask why, how, what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense too. And I kind of like that there are so many possibilities, because when you put them all together, they kind of all make sense. Like,
yes, ma'am. I can't point to one specific theory and say this is the smoking gun, But like you said, I've heard a lot of people say, if you put multiple theories together, if it's more than one thing going on, well, that's a good possibility. And it could be all of them. Could be that certain Mandela effects are caused by CERN, while others are caused by multidimensional jumping, and others are caused by D-wave, whatever the case may be. There could be multiple reasons for each change. We don't know yet.
No, we don't. But
Matter of fact, I was playing with Chat GPT this morning. I apologize, Carol. I was playing this morning with Chat GPT, and again, I'm working on a new theory there, so I can't let too much slip. But me and GPT, we're working on something. But it was getting into this same concept that we were just discussing there.
Now, are you going to share that at your next conference? Because now you got me so curious.
Yes, ma'am. I plan on sharing this definitely at the next conference. I've even got it working out maths for me on this theory. So, like, it's really nailing it down. I think I'm on to something with this one.
Well, might as well use artificial intelligence where we can, right?
Absolutely. And it started out with a simple question. Between UFOs, Mandela effect, ghosts, cryptids, like, is there any single connection between them? And it said yes, and it found one. I'm going to leave it at that for now, but it found a connection between all the paranormal things and physics. So yeah, I can't say a whole lot, but I've been working with GPT today, and it's told me quite a bit. And I do apologize. What was the question? I totally lost the question because I knew where I was going with that.
No, we kind of were all over the place, but we were. I think the last question I asked you was, we were talking about all the possible explanations for the Mandela effect, and if the internet would be responsible for like the growth of it, and maybe just the popularity of it alone. Because I was in a restaurant not long ago, and I was having a conversation about the Mandela effect, and I wasn't talking really loud, just in a normal voice. 2 booths away, the gentleman got up and walked over to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I've been reading about this too. What do you know?" Like asking me all questions about it. So, I mean, I thought that was kind of trippy. But again, the internet's out there. People are researching and finding out about it. And for those of you that do not know what it is, I highly recommend you do some legwork and start to do some research. Because, like, the more I learn about it, the more things I'm noticing in the real world that are very affected, like that have affected me in that way.
And I think this is a great point you bring up, Carol, in the real world, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's just an internet conspiracy. Oh, they're just changing things on the internet. Oh, well, you're just looking at stuff online." Well, that's not the case. When you go to the grocery store and you pick up a bottle of Jif peanut butter, or you go to look at the history of Jif at their company and see that it's always been that, it's never been Jiffy. Or when you go to the movie store to find a copy of Shazam that doesn't exist, full stop. Like, they're the real world examples. My favorite is Star Wars. Luke, I am your father. They didn't come into your house, steal your videotape, and replace it with a different version and then leave your house. They didn't. There's no Mandela burglar, right? So it's not just online. It isn't just me looking at a web page telling me something without a real world equivalent thereof, right? So it can't be an online psyop. I know a lot of people point to that. Oh, it's just a psyop. It's an online joke. It's this and that. That's not possible, because you have real world examples. You have things from your childhood that I'm sure you got in your attic, or a VHS tape that that wasn't changed by somebody physically changing it,
Right. What wasn't there the ET one? ET phone home phone something, but isn't that a Mandela?
There are a couple in ET. There's ET home phone.
Right.
And then at the end of the movie, he touches Elliot and he says, "I'll be right here." What spot does he touch on Elliot? Little glowing finger, remember?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I can't remember the spot, though. I haven't seen that movie in ages.
That's an honest answer. I would rather somebody tell me I don't remember than try to act like they remember something they don't.
I know the glowing finger. My first thought was shoulder, but no, I know it's
Okay,
not.
so a lot of people remember him pointing to Elliot's heart and saying, "I'll be right here."
Oh, okay.
Turns out he pointed to his head.
Is that the man? What's the real one?
So the Mandela effect is people remember him pointing to the chest at the end of the movie when E.T.'s leaving. That really sad scene. Remember him touching Elliot's chest. Well, he never did. In the movie, he touches Elliot's forehead and says, "I'll be right here."
So what's happening with the movie things though? Because does anybody have a clip from, an old VHS tape to show that he's pointing in the, like, how could we all remember something so differently?
Exactly. And again, you can pull up the VHS, and the VHS is different than what you remember. And again, somebody did not break into your house and exchange your VHS with a different copy of the tape. And we've seen this, like you said, a lot of different movies. We got Field of Dreams, Star Wars,
Right.
E.T. Field of Dreams bothers me a lot because I argued against this one. So if you build it,
they will come.
No, ma'am. Never spoken once in the entire movie.
No way.
Not once. So I remember a little different. I was listening to a radio host explain this one day too, and he was going off doing the same thing I used to do. I remember both being in the movie. I remember it being, if you build it, he will come, and if you build it, they will come. They being the team, he being the guy's father.
Right.
So it was they, and then it switched to he about halfway through the movie, and then the father shows up, and it becomes they again at the end with the people showing up and this and that. That's how I remember it. I'm not the only one. I've heard other people say they remember it that way too. They has never been there. It's been he from the first to the end of the movie. He says he. I said, no, you guys are wrong on this one. I'll prove it. I'm going to go get the script. And I did. And I read through the whole thing. And there's no they in there. Full stop.
I don't know.
It is weird. It is so weird. And again, nobody broke into your house and stole your 1980s copy of Field of Dreams and put a different one in there. No. That's not the way it happened, right? Like,
you must have tripped across in your research. What are psychologists saying about folks that are experiencing the man? Is it mass hysteria? Like they always say, it's mass hysteria.
Oh no, it's swamp gas reflecting off of Jupiter.
Swamp gas. I love that. That's awesome. Everything is swamp gas.
It's all swamp gas. Everything was, man, you gotta wonder the guy that come up with that, if he patted himself on the back or walked away going, God, I hope that worked.
I think I read that in the Roswell crash, that they were saying that that was one of the excuses that it was swamp gas. Oh my! So what do they say?
And they continue to use it for 3 decades. People say that's a lot of things, but it ain't swamp gas, buddy.
Right. So what are
the psychologists? So yeah. I have been their worst enemy. I really have when it comes to Mandela effect. So in the very beginning, they were beating us over the head with this term confabulation. So for those that don't know, confabulation is when you're sure you're telling the truth, but you're not. To you, it's real. To you, it's true. You're not intentionally lying, but it's not true. You made it all up in your head. We see this in things like Korsakoff disease with alcoholics, things like that. So psychiatrists were saying, well, the ones experiencing the Mandela effect, they're just dealing with confabulation. They're confabulating. They think they remember. They beat us over the head with this for a while until I went and did the research. I was doing the Mandela Effect Theory series, and I said, well, I've got to be fair. I've got to give mainstream their voice too. I have to at least put it out there if I'm going to put out all these other theories. It's only right. So I did. I went to looking. I got to looking into confabulation, and that's when I found a problem. The first half, again, like I just mentioned, they're right. It's when you falsely remember something, and it is false memory with confabulation. It is 100% false memory. And again, you see this a lot of times in alcoholics, Korsakoff syndrome, things like that. There's an episode of House where it shows that House walks in with the clipboard, has like a beach and some other like stimulants, like on his shirt, this and that. And he starts asking one of the patients something, and they start making a story up based on things they're seeing that he's holding, right? So this would be confabulation opposed to I know what I know when it's different now, right? Like that's completely separate. So I did the video. And I put that out there. Hey, by the way, guys, this is what confabulation means. But they were only hitting us with half the information. The other half is it only happens with people with Korsakoff syndrome or amnesia, which I don't remember having amnesia. I don't know, maybe. But even if you want to consider this just me, look at the group, right? You didn't have a whole mass of people just suddenly catch Korsakoff's disease. They're not alcoholics. We didn't suddenly all get amnesia at the exact same time for no cause, right? That's not a thing. So confabulation cannot be the answer. We're not confabulating anything. We're not drunks. We're not amnesiacs. We don't fit the second half of the definition. After putting that video out, very rarely do we ever hear confabulation used against us anymore. I'm not going to say I'm responsible for that, but right after the video came out, they stopped using it. That's all I'm saying. So psychiatrists have had to admit a couple things. They will not tell you we're crazy now. They will not tell you we're mistaken now. They will tell you that they can't quite explain why everyone remembers it the same way and that they need more research. And that's where they stand at the moment. And we're also, go ahead.
That's fair enough.
And then I agree. At least they backed up and said, oh God, we were wrong. We need to look at this again from a different angle. So credit where it's due to them on that one.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I was curious about what like the medical community was saying about. Plus, how could it be confabulation when people in Italy are discovering Mandela effects? People here are, and we're not communicating, and we're finding the same things.
Exactly. And then you've also got the false memory term. And like I said in the beginning of the interview, that gets us in trouble. But I think we did something good at this conference. At this last conference, we had a professor who got his doctorate on the Mandela effect. His dissertation was on the Mandela effect.
Wow.
First one ever to happen.
Did you read
at
it?
A university.
Did you read it?
He presented it as his talk at the Mandela Effect Conference.
Wow.
So I can't give a lot away in that because it will be coming out next month when the videos come out. But one thing he did, he, bless his heart, did not use the word false memory in his talk, but his slides did. His slides very much did.
Yeah.
So we ended up having a conversation at the panel discussion that I think was more than overdue for the community. And he kind of redeemed himself too. I'll give it to the doc. He redeemed himself from it. But false memory as a term, we all agree that's not what's going on. We all agree our memories aren't false. We all agree we remember the same things across a group of us, right? So we can agree with those terms. So we need a better term, scientifically speaking, to describe the Mandela effect. So false memory is not going to cut it. That's just going to piss off the entire community. Excuse my language.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no.
So the discussion was had, what would be a better term to come up with for the use in academic papers? And I think it was a great conversation. I'm not going to go any further with this story because I want people to watch the round table. But it was a wonderful discussion. I think it was a necessary discussion, a changing of terms, if you will, because it's not false memory. And though it denotes kind of what's going on, it doesn't, because it denotes that we are falsely remembering something and we're not. we remember it the same way. Clearly, we're the ones that are right.
No, I agree. So, tell us what about the next conference. When is it? Who's going to be there? I know didn't you just have a conference recently?
The answers are I don't know and I don't know. Yeah, we literally just had one 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So we're kind of in that in between phase right now. We're resetting. We're getting ready to figure out what the next one's going to be, where it's going to be, who's going to be there. So we don't have anything set up just yet. I apologize for my crazy green screen in the back. Apparently it's having a night.
Yeah. No, the good news is you don't need a green screen anymore because all of these platforms let you put like a faux background in. You don't even need a green screen. But anyway, it's fine. Nobody cares. Most of the people are hearing us right now anyway. But
right.
So your last conference, I know Cynthia was so excited for it because we spoke before the conference. So how many days does it last? Typically, give us a rundown of what they're like.
Oh, they're amazing. For anybody who's not been to one of these conferences, yes, I know, guys, I'm a little biased. I get it. But I promise I'm not the only one saying it. These conferences are top-notch amazing. The idea that you get to interact with people that understand you, that get you. I don't know if you've ever been, Carol, to a UFO conference. I never had the ability to go to those. I wanted to so bad, never could afford it. But the camaraderie that you get at these conferences it's so beyond. Like to be in a room full of people who completely understand what you're going through, what you've experienced, agree with your memories.
Yeah.
Like that is gargantuan, but that's
everything.
And that's the best part of these conferences, the in-between times, the times when you really get to talk to people, talk to the speakers, talk to others like yourself. But these conferences are about 3 days long normally. Normally have a meet and greet on a Thursday evening. Everybody comes together, your speakers and the guests, and everybody kind of hang out and get to know each other, which is always magical. Those moments are. And then we have 3 days at the conference. So it would be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would be the actual talks and events. We usually have about 3 speakers a day, roughly 3 to 4, depending how our layout is, and a panel discussion. They're amazing, amazing conferences. You've got people from all walks of life. You've got authors, you've got general researchers, you've got enthusiasts, I had one guy this last time is a psychedelic shaman. He gave a talk on his experiences using psychedelics and doing shamanic work within the Mandela Effect. So it touches so many different aspects. You're going to meet so many different variety of people. Hear so much different information, and you're not always going to agree with everything said. You're not supposed to. I've seen UFO conferences give 2 different talks back to back who are completely diametric of each other. You're going to hear things you don't agree with, and you're going to hear things you do agree with. And that's the idea, is putting the concepts out there, putting the ideas out there for people. But these events are absolutely incredible. We usually have food at these events, at least one meal we try to provide. And then at the end of the evening, we normally go out and pick a restaurant and invade that restaurant, whoever's lucky or unlucky enough to get us. But the conferences are just so amazing. I've learned so much from people. But the moments that mean the most, and I've heard this from everyone, including myself, are in between the talks. When you have a chance to talk to somebody, to hang out, to discuss your experience with other people. Like, these are the places that really, really happens. And I'm waiting for new theories to come out of the conference. They ain't yet, but I'm holding my breath.
How many people usually attend?
So we started out with 50 in Sun Valley, Idaho. That was in 2019. In 2020, we all know the garbage of lies that happened in that year. So we had to go digital. So we did the conference digitally that year. The next year, we went back to in-person. 23, we went back to in-person. So we did a couple years online. In 2023, we had about 50 people show up again, restarting, This year we did it in Nashville. We had a turnout of about 70 people. Not as big as I wanted it to, but we are slowly growing.
Good. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll bet your next one will even be bigger and bigger. And then what do you have? Well, of course, there's a website. So tell us the website.
The website is imec.world, IMEC.world. Of course, International Mandela Effect Conference, the letters from the beginning of each word there. .world. We've got an amazing webmaster. I have to shout out Senna. You do an amazing job over there, my friend. We just revamped our entire website a couple months ago before the conference. It's completely changed from what it was originally. It looks so much better. It interacts better. Information is fully plastered over there, if you will. We do update the site very regularly. Again, I've got an incredible webmaster who does a great job with that. Any information that we have coming up of conferences and stuff, we'll definitely be posting over there. We do a once a month open tables roundtable discussion on YouTube called IMEC Open Tables, where just us board members get together and discuss different things that have been found throughout the month and different Mandela effects, theories, the whole thing we would discuss, we would discuss in a conference setting. Every now and then we'll pull on a guest with us and stuff, but you can definitely find us imec.world, imec.world. We're also on YouTube as the International Mandela Effect Conference.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was a wonderful and exhilarating conversation. I'd love to have you back someday. I'm sure there's a lot more we can talk about.
Carol, it has been an honor and a pleasure. I thank you so much for having me on. I would love to come back. That would be absolutely amazing.
We'll
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We'll definitely make arrangements to do that.
Definitely before the next conference, and I'll try to be on time next time. I'll remember there's a time differential. I totally forgot about that. I feel so bad.
Oh, that's okay. I figured it was something like that. So, of course, I had to go to my hero, Michelle. But we had a great conversation waiting for you. So that was fabulous. Stick around, Jerry. I'm going to drop you out while I say goodbye to the folks, but stick around so we can chat for a second, okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. You're listening to Carolann on Paranormal Radio.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll be with you in a minute. Okay, so that was a great conversation. I'm so glad Jerry was able to make it. And of course, for those of you that have taken the time to listen, you were listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled with our guest, Jerry DarkWolf Hicks. We were live and are live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Thank you again so much. Please be sure to support us. I would appreciate it ever so much if you head on over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, which of course this streams to. So you'll be able to watch this again. It's under the live tab. So make sure you do that, please. And thank you. And that's Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Of course, we're all over social media. And I always post days ahead of time as to what the next show will be. And of course, we air every Thursday between the hours of 5 and 7 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for supporting this radio network. I am so honored to be a part of it. I am absolutely thrilled to be a part of this network. And of course, there are so many topics from ancient history to ufology, paranormal, extraterrestrial theories, conspiracy theories, cryptozoology, you name it, we air it. So thank you all so very much. Have a blessed and wonderful rest of your evening. See you next week.